welcome to Fiber Trek. My name is Sarah. Welcome. You are most welcome to my studio space here in the North Woods of Maine. I am looking forward to sharing with you all that I have embarked on here in 2023. If you are a patron of this podcast, a deep heartfelt thank you for your financial contribution. It is exceptionally encouraging and humbling, and I am, as I said, deeply grateful. On this episode, we are going to catch up on some of my daily practice. We are going to look at the state of the baby quilt. I am also going to share with you my progress that I've made with my knitting. I'm looking forward to catching up. Let's get started.
May you always find your way to higher ground. May you always keep your head held up high. Pretty little thing, you're a diamond in the rough, shining from within. I can tell that you're tough. Just the sight of you when I'm at my weakest point makes a world of difference, oh, you make me strong. Pretty little thing, you're a diamond in the rough, shining from within. I can tell that you're tough. Ordering a cup of love, feel it rising up and above. You will always keep my heart and soul strong. Plant your seeds and watch them grow. The light will always know where to go. You will always keep my heart and soul strong.
I haven't had much time to wallow in the post-holiday blues because my brother's family is expecting their third child here at the beginning of February, and I need to finish the baby quilt. I bought this fabric in July, believe it or not, and designed this quilt. I am combining the pinwheel blocks with some foundation paper pieced blocks. I really wanted to emphasize the illustrations and the beautiful motifs in this fabric, and I felt like that was the best way to do it because some of the motifs were larger and really wouldn't show up. I'm creating 6-inch blocks, which means that each of the half square triangles for the pinwheels are 3.5 inches, 3 inches finished, and 6 inches overall. I've talked about foundation paper piecing before. I was able to download these templates free, and I ordered my own newsprint and I printed them right on my computer. I find that Tiny Orchard Quilts has a lot of great advice and tutorials on foundation paper piecing as well as resources, and I would recommend her to you. Meanwhile, I am kind of in a frantic state of procrastination as I work to get this done prior to the due date. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to get there. I did order the thread so I could quilt this right on my own machine. And as you can see, I'm going to alternate the pinwheel blocks and the foundation paper pieced blocks across the quilt. And it's going to be 7 blocks by 8 blocks. So it's going to end up being 42 by 56. And I couldn't be happier with that beautiful sage green and these lovely little motifs. I look forward to sharing it with you when it's finished. Until then, we'll have to just wait for the amazing arrival.
I met an old man. I said, tell me your story. He took out an old pen and wrote something for me. Then he kept walking on down the road, and I watched him disappear like smoke. And I thought I'd just seen a ghost. Then I looked down at what he wrote. It said, son, when you grow up you'll be fine. I know you've got questions on your mind. Life is gonna happen one way or the other, whether you like it or not. Stop looking for the answers and you'll find what you've got.
I detailed in my last vlog about some of my daily practice, and this was an edition that I gifted myself for Christmas, and I also gave one of these books to my mother, which is A Color Per Day by Courtney Cerruti, and she goes through a series of exercises to practice, but mostly it's just about one time per day getting out your paints and creating a color, however you wish to do that. She also talks about naming that color, which I've actually really enjoyed, pulling something from my day and kind of creating a theme around that. And it also loosens up my ability to use my paints. I have a travel set and I have this larger 48 pan set, and getting to know the colors better and how they interact, this book has been really helpful. Now, aside from doing my color per day, I've also been working on my stitch journal. So every day I pull a color from either the color that I came up with in my book, or I can pull it from my color swatch that I've been doing with my Oracle deck, and I put it into a stitch journal. I detailed some of the origins of this again in that vlog on the last edition of the turning of the year, and I am really trying not to put any boundaries on myself for this or have any preconceived notions of how the colors should look or the stitches should look together, but I am finding overall that I really just love doing running stitch every day. Per the details of the vlog where I picked this up, I am finishing each of the days with a whip stitch around and calling it good. I'm not worrying about the back. I'm not worrying about the colors. I just getting into it and letting it go. It's really great practice. Hello and welcome to the fiber portion of the episode. I'm looking forward to sharing with you some of the gains I've made on my projects, as well as some project planning that's caught my attention. And let's see, anything else? I think that's probably it. I did spend a lot of time in December focused on other creative crafts, as you may have participated in my 4-part series Turning of the Year, and I kind of let some of the knitting fall to the wayside. But over the break between Christmas and the New Year and into the working week of the following kind of time, I was able to put some serious progress onto my J sweater by Rachel Brockman. Just of course dropped something off the couch. So I am knitting this free pattern, and I am using yarn I brought back from Norway, which is the Norsk Spelsau. It is, I hauled out because it's been a while since I've kind of referenced this amazing piece of work, which is the Fleece and Fiber Sourcebook by Deb Robeson and Carol Acarius. And I wanted to just take some time to acknowledge the importance of this here. I have talked a lot about breed-specific yarns in my past episodes of 8 years, and in recent time, I really haven't gone there because it has felt redundant. But I recognize that there are new participants here, and it's been years since I have made a nod to the real pull for me in knitting and fiber work, which is to look at the breeds, their quality, their history, and how they resonate with their landscape. You can see it's had some serious work over. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I drew, as part of my Oracle deck work, the cycle card from the Alchemist deck by Kim Krans. And I'm not using the word right. It was rotation, the rotational card. And she talks about cycling through, and I started to think about this podcast because I talked a lot about stuff over the past 8-10 years, and I take you on the same walk. But as I started to think about the seasonality and the cycle of that, and the comfort and stability in those cycles, I was reassured that I could keep revisiting this information, that things don't always need to be new, and leaning into the wisdom of, you know, the old ways and the practice and the, I don't like to use the word redundancy because that makes it feel like it's not of value, but that kind of cycle of interest and curiosity and discovery, even within something that can be familiar. So I hauled this out. I put it by my desk. I just want to go there again in a more detailed way on this particular podcast, because it's kind of where I got my start with the Soulful Stash, and, you know, being able to visit and be transported through our medium, which is fiber, which is so closely related to the land and the people and the history of where it originated from. So Norsk Spelsau, taking us back to, I'm just going to reference this because I did bring up the Norsk Spelsau site, and followed the ice north 10,000 years ago. So that's Ice Age. So anyway, I'm working on this, and I've been working on it for a while. You may have been following me long enough to know that I actually knit this whole yoke and then ripped it all out and restart. And then I got distracted by finishing some other projects. But here I am finishing the sleeve, and I decided to finish the hem in the white. And I really like this detailing that happened here, where the purl stitch, because I've done this in a seed stitch, I did not change needle sizes. So I've gone ahead and mimicked that onto the cuff. Now I just picked up my sleeves and knit down. I didn't really do any decreasing until I got to the elbow, and then I've decreased 12 stitches to the cuff, and I'm just going to knit the cuff on what's left. I am perfectly happy to have more ease in my arms to get like my undershirts underneath so I can ski, etc. in them. And here's the kicker for the finishing on this. So I cannot find the white Spelsau that I brought home. I don't know where it is. And so instead of getting stuck, I am using some of my own Icelandic yarn that was spun by a rustic fiber mill a couple years ago, which has a very similar feel because they're related, short-tailed fiber, thanks Deb Robeson and Carol Acarius, and a similar weight. So I am finishing it in this, and the actual hues of the white are not the same. One is a little bit creamier. This one I think is a little bit white, more stark in its nature. But my hope is that from a distance, not really going to be able to tell. So that's happening. I did have some resistance to this. shifting to it and did some work around like that it's not the same. And I don't know why that came up for me here, but this was a composite thing from Norway. I think that's where I'm getting stuck. This was from Norway. It's meant to be my Norwegian sweater with yarn from Norway where I went, etc. And I'm throwing in this, and I got really kind of stumbled on that, like internal angst about that, but I'm over it. I'm doing it. I can change my thoughts to solve my problem. And so I did. And hopefully this will be done and cast on for the other sleeve today. So the other thing that I've been working on still is the Kairuna by Ronja Hakalito, and this is a shawl that I'm knitting in Tidal yarns in her fingering weight in a blue. I think this is like an over-dyed in indigo. So the lace pattern I'm continuing to work on. I think I have like maybe another 30 rows to go, and I've gotten smart and I have printed it out, and I am using a highlighter to help me figure out where I am. So that's made a big difference in my ability to track where I am in the repeat. I also, if I haven't pointed out, I use stitch markers between each repeat so I can also keep track of am I ending where I need to, etc. And then being able, of course, to match and read the knitting to the chart has been really helpful. So I do like working from charts and being able to see if the pattern is shaping up to match. So that's very helpful. So my other hope is that this is going to wrap up at a very similar time to the sweater. So we'll get another shawl and the sweater onto the wardrobe shelf and out of the stash. And I take both of these with me when I travel. If you're not familiar, I travel weekly to my parents to work, and then I come back to my home here in northern Maine, and these both travel with me. Now, one thing that has piqued my interest is that my nephew is a true sweater wearer. I got sent a picture of him the other night where he was attending a hockey game, and he was wearing a sweater that a friend of ours had knit for him. And his mom reports that he wears the blue Tender Heart by Tin Can Knits that I knit for him out of Rama incessantly, all the time. And he also wore the other two sweaters I knit for him quite frequently and cherished them and talked about them. So I need to knit him another sweater. And instead of getting hung up on some of the stumbling blocks that I was thinking about, he really wanted a sweater knit for him out of our own Icelandic yarn. And if you've been following me, you know that I have been spinning that. And so there's two things happening here. My ball of yarn has rolled away, so hold on, let me get it. There we go. So there's two things happening here. One is the actual material that I need to spin. I have spun up just about, I would say 220 yards of the main color. And I don't have enough, or I don't have a contrast color that I think is going to work. I have some Icelandic Lopi that was spun for me by a rustic fiber mill in a beautiful deep brown from an old sheep, but I'm just not sure that's going to be enough contrast. I think it would be subtle, and I think it might be something I might like, but Cameron is kind of a traditional guy, and I think when he's thinking about this Icelandic sweater, I think he wants it to have a high contrast, so high value. So here is the hand spun on a US 8. I don't know if that's going to show up, but I am getting about 3.5 stitches to the inch, so it is hovering right there around a bulky gauge. And my thought was to knit the Drema, which is a Jennifer Steingass pattern, and I knit mine out of Nash Island marled yarn and then her Nash Island light in the raven color. So his would be reversed, his would be dark with a contrast pattern in white, and I think I'm just going to purchase some Lopi to do the contrast for him. I'm sure there'll be plenty of other opportunities to hand spin and hand knit for him. So I don't want to get hung up on this is his only hand spun hand knit Icelandic sweater or his only Icelandic sweater, but there'll be enough of our yarn in there, I think, to to resonate with him and his desire to be connected to the flock and his grandparents' place, which is where I keep the sheep and me, etc., and all the handwork that goes into that. So he's a very sentimental, empathic guy, and all of that is important to him. So I really wanted to make sure that this project exemplified all of that. So I think I have some Lopi upstairs. I'm going to knit a swatch, and I've been doing a lot of calculating because my gauge is much larger than what is called for in the pattern. So I grabbed a couple books, and I think I'm just going to kind of make it up as I go. I did grab the Ann Budd book of sweater patterns to help understand sizing of what I need for him, primarily more for his arms. And so when I'm going to knit this top down, and I'm going to want to be able to make sure I increase to the correct kind of shoulder breadth and etc. So that came in very handy. And then I pulled out an oldie but a goodie, which is The Best of Lopi, which was one of the first books that I purchased when I started knitting about 22 years ago. And I knit out of this book, which moths got to, and I had to throw away, compost. And I knit it twice because I didn't understand gauge when I knit it, is the Zora. And I knit it in Ice-Tex Let Lopi in a deep dark brown. So beautiful. And so getting this book out and revisiting these patterns, I really was like, I want to knit that again. So, I don't know. I'm feeling, and I've talked about this before, I'm feeling like I want to knit from my books, and I want to kind of go back in time a little bit and just rest in that. We're thinking about, always moving forward and the next new thing, but this was kind of pulling me back and drawing me back, and I really appreciated going through that on this Sunday morning when I'm recording with a cup of coffee and the sun shining through, and thinking about my younger knitting self. This was pre-Ravelry. So anyway, so I'm using these books as references, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is just casting on and understanding the number of stitches in the pattern repeat and continuing to move forward till I get the size that I want, etc. So we'll see how that goes. Now, the other caveat to this project is that I need to spin. So I have pulled my spinning wheel out from its hiding place in the corner where I moved it during the holidays and visitors, and I have also pulled out the roving, and I'm going to make a point to spin. This gets a little bit challenging with some of the travel that I do because I don't bring my wheel with me, but yeah, I'm going to make a point to do that today, even with all of the editing and other chores that need to be done, although Ruby is resting quite quietly here with me versus hankering for a true romp, and it's going to be a beautiful day to get outside today. So there's a lot to do, but I want to make a point to get behind that wheel and continue to work on this yarn so I can knit his sweater, because he needs sweaters. It is apparent. He's also a hockey player, and that makes sense to me that he'd have a really beautiful hand-spun, rugged outerwear sweater to show up to practice in. So now, my niece, on the other hand, will not be begging or asking for a hand-spun Icelandic wool sweater. However, she has asked for a shawl, which is the Nicole shawl. This was knit for me by Nicole of the Gentle Knitter as a gift. This is a shawl that was designed kind of with her as an inspiration. And my niece, I wrapped her up in this, and she was like, I want one. And so I have aspirations to knit this. She wants it in pink and teal. I was thinking either magenta and gray or teal and gray. So I'm going to let her pick which contrast color, and then I need to figure out what yarn to do for her, because she is more of a sensitive sensory texture person. So we'll need to work through that when the time comes. So both of them have knitting work in the plans. However, Cameron is definitely more interested and wanting of this sweater. So I'm going to get on that. And I think that really takes me to where I am here in the new year, I have a lot of plans, and I've been feeling that motivation and call of my stash and my fibers and different fibers, and kind of, again, like I mentioned, reinvigorating my interest in talking about and highlighting those breed specific or interesting yarns, small, minimally processed yarns and mills and the people behind them. So as always, I'm forever grateful for the work that is done, which is hard work and tedious work in some instances, but I certainly enjoy it and am grateful. So I think I'm going to leave you on that note. I will see you in a few weeks. I hope that you're welcoming in the new year with ease and possibility and opportunity. Many blessings to you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.